Femi, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So, Mr. Femi, how achievable is the 34.33 trillion naira revenue target for 2026, considering the 6.55 trillion naira reduction from prior estimates and the conservative budgeting at 1.8 million barrels per day oil production? What's your take?
Well, it's actually quite an impressive proposal. There's a very much appreciated take on the reality of the situation. For 2025, you would remember that some of the projections that were laid out were quite ambitious and very optimistic. I think the MTEF 2026 to 28 actually is a bit more balanced, and the projections for 2026 is actually more realistic, more feasible. In fact, I expect that the country has a chance of outperforming expectations. What we had projected for this year was about 34.8. And I mean, we are on track to achieve that. However, the fact that they would consider the implications of elections coming up in 2027 and how it could affect the economy, so they don't want to shake things up too much and be too much on a revenue drive, so that does not become an issue, a political issue, rather than an economic advancement course, is also very credible. Also, our crude oil projection for 2026 is also pretty reasonable considering the global market in the energy sector. We have seen that over the course of this year, crude oil prices have been around $64, $68 thereabout. So the projection that they are placing on it, I think, is pretty good. It accommodates any of those vagaries without too much exposure. Also, the other part I have a bit of a concern about, but I think that with the current projections, we might see a stabilization, but we'll keep observing, is the projection for crude oil, expectations. Our average for the year is 2025 thus far is significantly less than what has been projected. And you will recall that last year we were projecting about 1.8, for crude oil projection. So currently in the circumstances, the present position is might be a little bit ambitious, but the GOE callbacks would aid in revenue aggregation towards achieving some of the capital position. We are also looking closely at the deficit positions in terms of debt servicing and all the other listing, as well as the performance of the current budget, to give a clearer outlook on how the framework for 2026 to 2028 will play out.
So do you think the $100 million African Development Bank facility for youth entrepreneurs, do you think it's going to boost the SME growth and help close the GDP growth gap noted by President Tinubu?
Well, the thing about such positions is that it is implementation critical. And I mean, just having funds or access to funds does not mean that it's going to be properly implemented, or that the effects would be immediately either in the short, mid, or long term felt by the people. The question that will be asked around is a laudable, partnership, but we need to look at the effectiveness and what we are targeting. So if we say we want to empower youth between the ages of 18 and 35, I think it would be best also to have particular areas with set targets, what we are hoping to achieve. This sector, we want to achieve this. We can say in the STEM sector, this is what we'll like to push for in terms of research, in terms of value add creation. We can say in agriculture, this is what we want to position the youth at. Even if it is entertainment that you want to empower people, is technology, is manufacturing, the implementation is more important than the fund, because the funding might come in, and then if you don't feel the effect, it just slush fund for a few people. Also, the administrators have to be pretty careful not to have the entire thing hijacked or mismanaged by unscrupulous elements. As we know, our people are pretty funny. Some people could come up with some idea or some scheme to try to paint it on a wrong color, and then they could use it to defraud other people, create systems. So we need a very robust position around it. We need information as to how it's going to be implemented, get different stakeholders across both the established industries and the universities involved in how it can be helped, engage the informal market and informal sector in terms of their contribution for those who do not have the benefit of formal education, but they are also active contributors to the economy, and then see how we can, drive the entire economy holistically forward, leveraging on this investment position, this aid position rather.
Medium-term fiscal expenditure balanced the 3 trillion naira statutory transfers with overall spending limits amid, macroeconomic challenges.
Pardon, I didn't get what you said.
I was asking that how does the medium-term fiscal expenditure balance the 3 trillion naira statutory transfers with, the overall spending limits amid the macroeconomic challenges that we're having?
I think really that position is very balanced. It's a stable position for what we're looking at. The economy does not produce too much. It doesn't produce any significant shuffle in the positioning of things. What it just establishes is that we would try to maintain stability across, cross-sectional affairs. At the same time, we would also try to ensure that accountability, is entrenched. You would notice that if we compare with the expenditure from the transfer expenditure from the previous budget, this actually leverage on it and actually seem to have learned from it. It's important to recall that by 2026, there are a couple of tax reforms and tax positioning and tax net aggregation that's going to come into place. So we would have a bit more of a balanced and position in terms of bringing together the aggregate, funds and revenue and service expectations in the country.
Thank you so much, Femi Onakanren. I hope I got that right. Thank you for joining us and giving us the insight to this situation. We appreciate it.